That's good.
I told her. See an uncle down here.
Don't say can't say. Sounds like a challenge.
Yeah. I didn't see them yet.
Said, Jones could act a little strange.
Yeah.
We're going to a funeral. He said, I'll talk to you.
Good evening and welcome. Land acknowledgement. We begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Woolastoq-Week. These territories are covered by treaties of peace and friendship of the Woolastoq-Week people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. We now call our meeting to order. Has attendance been taken? Approved of the agenda?
Pal or Macdo?
Second, Dave Morrison, Hamwell.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Are there any conflict of interest for disclosure this evening? Consent agenda. Approval of the minutes, March the 3rd, 2026, March 25th, 2026. Regional Infrastructure Committee report, February 24th. Community Development Committee report, Economic Expansion Committee report. Can I have a motion on the floor to adopt the consent agenda, please?
I move to receive the items identified in the consent agenda. Marty Forsyth.
Second. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Move on now to presentations, and we have several presentations tonight. I've already made my rounds and explained how much time you have. Unfortunately, we don't have a clock in the room, but I have John here, my assistant, and he'll be showing you when the 10 minutes is up. So, the presentation
I got
is,
promoted.
but the pay didn't increase. Unite Regional Strategy, we have Paula Lear, Andrew Lockhart, and Nasheen Ali, and I believe all three are going to take their turn in presenting.
Yes,
So
we
the
are.
floor is all yours. Thank you.
We'll just wait for the presentation to come up. Perfect. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. As we get started, we just wanted to highlight, you can go to the next slide, sorry. We just wanted to highlight a few things that were achieved in 2025 that we'll be diving deeper into throughout tonight's presentation. Together, they set the stage for impact we've achieved across the capital region and where we're heading next. Ignite honored with 2 national marketing awards. In 2025, our marketing communications team was recognized nationally with 2 awards, reinforcing that we're not only doing impactful work, but telling that story in a way that elevates the region. Increased brand presence. We also saw significant growth in our digital reach and engagement, with more people seeing our content, interacting with it, and connecting it back to Ignite. This strengthens our role as a trusted source for economic development in the region. Oh, Andrew.
So talking about the Connector program has proved to be very important in our workforce connection building and to help people build their professional networks in the region. These connections are actually translating into real-time employment opportunities. And we have seen that in all our success stories that you've heard in the past, and that more success stories that you will hear in the future as well. We have brought about some very innovative changes to how we run the program here, which includes having improved social media presence through a special LinkedIn community. This community does not only promote connectors, but it promotes the program as a whole. And this has been very appreciated by the National Secretariat of the program. We have also used our CRM to streamline the process of matchmaking between connectors and connectees, and handle more number of connectees at any given point in time, so that we're more efficient like that. And some of these approaches have also been replicated in other regions in Canada. We hosted our third diversity gala last year. A few of you attended it, so you know how important it is to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in our region. It was attended by people from multiple backgrounds. There was some entertainment, and speaking of success stories, there were many success stories shared at the gala. We also did our second Ignite Summit, which brought together leaders, businesses, and partners from across the region to have meaningful conversations about the future of our region and creating those most important collision points that drive innovation and collaboration.
Thank you, Nosheen. A few things I want to touch upon, and I'll be mindful not to get into lecture mode because of the timing, of course, but the first one incorporates a lot. Business retention and expansion survey and results. Annually, we do what we call a brief, survey those businesses. Just to give you a tidbit, over 70% of the businesses we surveyed this year described the current business climate as good or excellent. And over the past 12 months, almost half of respondents reported their attitude about doing business in their community has improved and become more positive. And this is a very positive data set, especially compared to surveys going on across the country, and especially in the last year, all the changes economically we've been seeing. The business community here in the capital region is staying strong, staying positive, but of course, there's still work to do. One of the increases support mechanisms we're seeing is, of course, the startup and new business support. We're seeing an increase of entrepreneurs looking to start their businesses, looking to take advantage of our resources and our support mechanisms, which is very encouraging. Of course, you're seeing a lot of what we call, the technical component of startups, but new businesses as well, opening up small shops, restaurants, et cetera. We're seeing a lot more interest in that support, seeking funding, seeking support, et cetera. Speaking of startups, I know many of you in this room has heard me talk about our Merge program over and over and over again. So again, I'm not going to go into lecture mode on this one, but we just concluded cohort 1, Merge. 5 startups got their first sales. Working with municipalities in this room, those sales will help them get to the next step in increasing their presence, getting further sales, growing, expanding, et cetera. And just to touch upon it quickly, Vision 2030, 2025 marked the shift of Vision 2030 from strategy into action. Through stronger alignment, deeper partnerships, and early implementation, we are building the foundation for long-term coordinated regional growth. 2025 was the start of this. 2026, we'll see some significant updates from Vision 2030 with our task forces and everything with that. If we can jump to the next slide, please. You're going to see a lot of data points here. It's the stuff we love, it's the stuff I love. I'm not going to touch upon every single one. What you are seeing are the data points of our organization collectively. You're seeing the hard work of all 3 of our teams, Paula, Nosheen, and myself. All of our teams are put in these data points, but there's one data point I want to talk about today, and that's that 630. Okay, those are the jobs created. Those are the jobs that were the businesses that we worked with, turned around and were able to create jobs after our resources and our support that we put into those businesses. One thing, 2 components to that. There's 2 inputs, is what I like to call them when it comes to job creation. One is the coaching and the support. One business from our business development officers, for example, working with them. It could be, I have an idea, I need help with seeking funding, business planning. I'm making sales, I want to seek a location. It could be, after a successful 40-year run, I'm looking to sell my business and I need help continuing this and selling it to a new buyer, potentially transitioning to a family. All of that comes from a one-on-one conversation with our teams. Second component, I talked about the brief. If we get enough results, if we get enough comments, which we always do, including the entire team, you see themes, you see targets, and that's where programming comes in place. We have several different initiatives when it comes to programs. You can see here 55 different programs and the number of participants, of course. That also is an input to those businesses getting support, growing, scaling, creating jobs, further supporting our economic development region, economic region. one component of this, we talked about inputs, the output of the 638 new jobs. What that means is, and I heard a great quote actually today when somebody on our team was asking for the definition of economic development to test everyone, what they saw when they're viewing. And one talked about their interpretation of a dollar flowing through the community. When you see the 638 new jobs, what that means is approximately 31.9 million per year in total income generated. Talking about that dollar generated and going through the community, we're talking injecting $23 million in local consumer spending in the capital region. And that's quite significant. It's showing the impact that even just a one-on-one counseling support, a conversation between our workforce team, getting them to a job fair, getting the right people, all the way to translating to economic growth. That's what we want to see, and those are those numbers.
Next slide, please. So last year was a bit turbulent in terms of changing immigration landscape and the reduction of the number of people arriving into the region from outside of Canada. So we shifted our focus a bit to activities and events that helped us improve our retention rate. Not that we stopped doing attraction events at all, we continued to do that, but there was an increased focus on retention. And these activities were rooted in the principles of integration, inclusion, and belonging. We saw an ever-increasing number of newcomers taking advantage of our programs and events. 2009 unique newcomers took advantage of our programs. And according to data NB, we were able to retain almost 81% of newcomers who arrived into our region in 2023. That is the latest data that we have of the 2023 cohort. Next year, we will have more numbers from the 2024 cohort. And despite of a sluggish employment scenario, our labor force grew by 0.5% and our unemployment rate reduced by 0.9%.
So one of the numbers I want to highlight here is the 789. When we provide support for our business community, we obviously want to see businesses grow, scale, and create jobs. But sometimes, it depends on the economic times, the industry, et cetera. If a business can just survive, that's a win. So we also keep track of the amount of businesses that we interact with and we work with that have gone through our services, whether one-on-one, programming, the whole thing. And we worked with 789 businesses. Our business development team worked with that number of businesses. And those include startups, those looking to create a business, seek funding, et cetera, all the way to somebody looking to sell, like I said, their 40-year-old shop. That's the number of businesses. And when we break that down, it's quite significant you can see, it's a bit small. I'm gonna walk through a bit. But the industries our business development officers provided support. A lot of it's proactive to ensure that we're reaching out to the various communities, but we're reactive. We have businesses reach out to us. 32% of those businesses fall within professional, scientific, and technical. 15% are accommodation and food services. 11% are retail, trade, and 8% are arts, entertainment, and recreation. Those are the businesses we've been working with, and depending on the year, that can shift, of course, when you have certain economic situations. Retail and food accommodation are often the first to get hit, the last to leave of any situation. And the last thing I want to mention is the last number there is 210,000. That's significant because that's the amount of value our team is providing to businesses. So if you were to compare that to the private sector, a one-on-one, 1 hour discussion, our businesses right now this year have received that amount of value in their services.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Next slide.
Next slide.
I'm gonna keep this one super quick. We talked about our data. I've already been nudged a couple times, but I wanna make sure. Those numbers are my team. I stand on the shoulders of an incredible team. One last thing I want to talk about is those new startups / new businesses we work with. Those are brand new, 60. We have that did not exist before. We're seeing an increase, and that's quite significant. I'm happy to provide any intake questions after that with the other numbers. Rasheen?
Okay,
Next slide, please.
So very quickly, I want to talk about two things here. Our past workforce strategy, which actually concluded last year. Year 4 plan was fully in swing, and now we are in the process of developing a new workforce strategy for our region. Hopefully work will be done by mid of this year, and we would have a new strategy and implementation plan in place for the next 3 years. The newcomer care strategy, which was launched early last year, again, the first year implementation plan is fully in swing. I am very proud to say that, all the partners that are involved in this co-created and coordinated, collaborated strategy are fully on board and are playing their distinct roles in achieving the common objectives that we have. And those objectives are, of course, integration and retention. Our job fairs are very well attended. At one of them last year, there were over 400 people. And we received great feedback. In fact, somebody on the floor even asked us, what do you do to get so many people in a room? Talking about a client's journey, it is very important that, all these events are connected because when a person starts from one of our capacity building programs, becomes a connectee, goes into a job fair, finds a placement, becomes a connector, that's when it turns into a success story. And that's the full cycle of, a successful client. And we track all that. And I think that's what sets us apart from other regions because we do not let anybody go. We take it from start to finish line.
I think we're done. We're done. I have a slide, but we're out of time.
Yeah, no, you're
No,
good.
we're good.
No,
Okay.
Still got a couple more minutes.
Just to wrap it up, folks, I just wanted to say marketing communications did play a more strategic role in 2025. That shift did reflect how important clear, consistent messaging is in such a changing environment. This was also the first year that my team actually introduced fully reportable KPIs aligned with Ignite's corporate performance framework. We've always had KPIs. They've just been internal. We have never added them to a corporate KPI reporting. So really proud to say that we hit all of our targets that we went for. We're also proud to have our work recognized externally, receiving those 2 prestigious national marketing awards, reinforcing that our approach is not only effective locally, but it's also leading at a broader level. The key takeaway is this: marketing is no longer just a support function. It's an integrated part of how we communicate impact, build confidence, and help to move the region forward. And the next slide is just a look at our team. We would be remiss not to say that these are the folks that make it all happen.
And we're done.
Oh, thank you very much. Is there any questions? Any questions around the table? Yes?
I just have one, so I know I've mentioned it to you folks before, but as far as startups are one thing where you can get some money for startups, but is there any continuing, not necessarily funding, but help for the people that may need a little bridging to keep your business going to finally hit success?
So one of the components of what we do with the support for startups is we have funding at Ignite when it comes to the impact loan that is administered through ACOA, and that's specific to the City of Fredericton borders. But that same funding is available through other organizations. So what I always tell startups, new businesses, older businesses, is your first phone call should be us, because we have those networks and we meet regularly with all of those organizations to ensure if there's any funding available, bridging funding, et cetera, that we're there to make that connection and help them go through that process. And we also have applications and tools that can search for any federal, provincial, other grants and support mechanisms that can help them depending on their industry, depending on their size, et cetera.
Any further questions around the table? Yes, Deputy Mayor Pike.
Thank you so much. I just have a quick question. You mentioned 60 brand new businesses, and I'm wondering, are they located throughout the region or are they concentrated in one area? Maybe you don't have the information here with you.
I don't have the specific information. With the size, for example, you'd see a heavy concentration of the business community just in general. You're seeing a lot in Fredericton. So we would have a lot of startups, particularly in, like I said, the professional scientific sector in the Fredericton area. But what you see predominantly outside of Fredericton as well is not only some startups, but what I call new businesses. So we're getting into the new restaurants, new stores, things like that. So you are seeing it spread out, but concentration, you'd see a heavy concentration of the population.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So I need a motion to receive the regional strategy. Sure.
So just wanted to make a point that we work every day with Andrew, Nosheen, Paula, Sarah and the team at Ignite. Just, I'd be remiss on a couple of points. One of the Merge success programs is actually here in the room with us tonight and be part of a presentation a little later on in terms of trail connectivity and what's happening there on our blue trails. Also, we report every year through our workforce labor force agreement on targets that are set. And they're mutually agreed upon targets, but they're always and forever increasing. And it's more and more difficult, as Nosheen said, with the cutbacks in the level of new Canadians arriving on a daily basis and trying to have newcomers come in and settle. It's more of a challenge, but I do want to say that Pedal has constantly, and Working NB has constantly recognized this through Ignite as achieving and all targets and exceeding in most. So I mean, there's really is a lot of good work that's happening. And last year at the gala, the next day I went out to Director Nicklin's area for Household Hazardous Waste Days. And when I came back, I drove up through Director Sharp's area and stopped at a small business. And one of the people that were there that night before talked about the baked goods at a particular restaurant. Or a bakery, sorry, and kind of general store, if you will. It's kind of an eclectic little place, lots of artisan things for things. And when I stopped, I mentioned Ignite. And the lady behind the desk here, behind the counter, told me that if it wasn't for Ignite, she wouldn't have been in that business. They wouldn't have started up. She wouldn't have been repatriated from Alberta, that she received a lot of support. The artisan sitting there getting her wares out for sale during that time, this was in around late October, turned around and said, oh my goodness, they helped me with everything from supply chain, understanding how to order, how to get my business and the mentoring. So the truth is right there. It's all around us. We just have to, sometimes mention the name and you'll get a positive response. So I just want to say that, Madam Chair,
Thank you.
sorry.
Yes, and I remember that conversation. That's the lady that had
From
the
France.
very strong handshake. So I need a motion on the floor to receive the regional strategy. Anybody?
I so move, David. Seconded, Captain Nicklin.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Paula, Nosheen, and Andrew. Thank you. Move on now to the Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, a regional strategy, and we have Stacey Russell and David Seabrook, and I believe Stacey Russell is going to do the presentation. The floor is all yours, Stacey.
Thank you and good evening, everybody. I would have been here presenting to you all about a year ago. And immediately following that, we would have had our presentation to the tourism industry. Many of you were in the room. We had a record-breaking 150 people and an awful lot of excitement for the 2025 season. So I'm very excited to be here today to give you a little bit of a snapshot on what some of those numbers are. Some are still coming in, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to see some of you May 7th for the official launch as well. But with that, let's go to the first slide. So first off, just more so of who we are again. We'll go through this quite quick. So we are a full service, we're called an RDMO, Regional Destination Marketing Organization. We are a team of 12 very passionate marketers promoting the Fredericton Capital Region. And what we focus on is marketing and sales, product experience development, programming and events, industry consultations, and then of course, a big reason why we're here today, talk about that economic impact reporting, our KPIs and scorecard. We'll go to the next slide, please. So in the essence of time, I will tell you that we have pages and pages of information of us contacting industry to be able to see how was 2025? How did that season go? So we're going to touch a little bit on some of those answers or some of those highlights today, but no, we have even more should, if there's, and you'll see a little bit more of it as well during the launch. But we've met, and a lot of this is through Rose Arsenault, which I think every single person in this room knows, and at least you're not looking for her tonight, it's me. But we've met with over 110 tourism operators. So that's Rose, and she's bringing in the appropriate people that would help those operators. So that would include our cohorts with Ignite, but also DAF, ACOA at times, provincial departments, whoever makes the most sense. So really maximizing that time and being able to help as much as we can. So what we also offered earlier this year was a subsidized training, customer service training in working with Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick. So we filled it with more than 20 operators in the room. We will see when there's further opportunities for that. That's great value as we're welcoming visitors to the capital region. So of course, influencers, which we will talk about in a later slide, but also of the continued exposure through the visitor guide, but as well our digital platforms, so our website, social media, and then those signature events. So I know it's tougher to be able to see that, but what I mean by that is Frostival, our Dine Around Freddy. So for Frostival, for example, we had 25 different properties around the region participate in that. Dine Around Freddy, we saw a large number, including Birdies, who sold out all of their Dine Around Freddy in 6 hours, all of their tickets. So some great success in really driving that business during a time of year that can be more challenging. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So in terms of some of those numbers. So first off, very excited to announce that we saw an increase of 10% in our visitors in 2025. So that's 741,000. With that, that's Quebec. We saw an increase of 10% for Quebec visitors. New Brunswick visitors were up 5%. Nearly 400,000 hotel rooms were sold in the Fredericton Capital Region. How we're able to get that number is through our STR report. So that's an annual report that we would receive. There's a strong demand during peak seasons. Multiple properties were speaking about sellouts that they had through the summer. We speak there in terms of the total or the top markets of who is visiting, and those are also specifically who we market to. But a couple of those great stories would be, so Lakeway Houseboats, for example, 60% of their bookings were from out of province. They included a lot of Ontario, Quebec, and US bookings were up 7% for Lakeview, for Lakeway Houseboats. Gray Pottery in Gagetown, 40% of their visitors were from outside of province for their customers. And then in Nakawik, Sunset View Campground, 90% were from out of province. So, and then the other 12% were from out of country. So really some fantastic numbers. Mangata in Central York as well, at least half were outside of Atlantic Canada, including Europe. So, and then I'd be remiss not to mention King's Landing, who saw they were up 28% in 2025. But another big story for King's Landing was creating their product, Village Aglow. So Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, we partnered with them on that to be able to help with marketing and whatnot. They saw 16,000 visitors through that and in over 160,000 in revenue. So fantastic stories and really being able to help during that off season. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So in terms of that muscle and that social media and website of what we do. So first off, we saw over 1 million users to the Fredericton Capital Region website in 2025, an increase of 18%. Of that, over 4 million page views. So we're capturing them through our marketing and we're keeping them and they're visiting all around the website, which is fantastic. The calendar event still maintains one of the top 3 most visited pages on the website. But one of the big ones that we wanted to point out was the most viewed blog. So with 810,000 views, and it was top 10 unforgettable adventures in the Fredericton Capital Region. So we take this content that we know is performing very well, and then we'll market it even more to be able to push it and leverage the opportunities. So the Fredericton Capital Region website is robust. I'd be remiss to, we're in there multiple times a day with additions and deletions, making new changes. There are over 550 attractions and experiences showcased from around the region on that website. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So we talked a little bit in terms of delivering value across the region. So these are some of the items, like we mentioned, Dine Around Freddy. Festival development, that's working with our festivals on finding funding sources where we can of what opportunities are available, being able to help them grow their festival, destination development, best practices, what's out there, and of course, marketing. We use an example of the Stanley Fair, who is announcing some very big, had some great announcements last week. So working with them and also putting out some fun little teasers on social media to kind of drive that traffic a little bit more and that excitement. Ongoing collaboration with our operators. So it's important. We don't know unless the operators tell us, using the Stanley Fair example. They reached out to Rose to say, we're about to make some announcements. Perfect. Let's make sure that we put that in and get it in the calendar and get it set so that we're actually on the ball in line with them. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So some 2025 results at a glance. This is focusing on our travel trade market. So those are the tour buses, the group tours. So giving you a little bit of a snapshot. In the interest of time, I'm going to slide over that and head right straight through to travel media, where we hosted 23 press trips. We just had one yesterday, in fact, for 2026. So that really, if you see anything in a magazine, newspaper, if you're still reading them, online blogs, et cetera, there's a really good chance that our office has touched that and has had some involvement. So our media last year amounted to 177 million impressions, estimated at over 18 million in advertising value. So we'll go to the next slide. I want to give you one of those examples. So this is just one example of that high value coverage. And it is literally, we took all of them off the newsstand at Indigo. There were 3, but we bought them all. So this is Canadian Boating Magazine. And very happy to say that both Gagetown, Arcadia, as well as Grand Lake are referenced in this. So I'm not crazy, I brought 2. So we'll give those to you both afterwards. So it's to give you an idea, that was from hosting a writer and really to a couple and bringing them out on the water and profiling the Fredericton Capital Region. There's an awful lot of value, and we hit some fantastic publications through this and shine the spotlight on the Capital Region. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So this is so for us, really right now, April is when people are starting to think, plan, and dream about their vacations. So we would have been in market. These are some of the examples of the 2025 ads. And right now, I can tell you we're already in market in Ontario, Quebec, and New England, because people are starting to dream, they're starting to plan. So this is done in partnership with New Brunswick Tourism as well, to be able to leverage their expertise and their dollars, will be frank. And Maritimes, Ontario, Quebec, and New England are those markets. From there, as they go through that dreaming and planning stage, then as they get closer down the funnel and start heading into the Maritimes, then we focus on intercept and being able to move them around and capture them in the Fredericton Capital Region. So we'll go to the next slide, please. These are some of the results of the 2025 marketing campaign. So this is both our own as Fredericton Capital Region Tourism, as well as the partnership with with New Brunswick Tourism. So 93.6 million impressions, just to give you an idea of just the magnitude, the size of that. It is really about leveraging any partnerships where we can to be able to continue to get that great exposure for the Capital Region. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So as well, we're also involved with New Brunswick Tourism on air access, as well as the Fredericton International Airport. So we partner with WestJet, Porter Airlines, and Air Canada. That was all done in 2025. We are doing the same thing again for 2026. The Porter campaigns, they generated, it's actually 24,000 bookings, more than 24,000 bookings. And then we continue to work with the airport in terms of future growth and what could that be. And that's also in working with the Tourism Accommodation Levy Group to be able to access that. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So here's a little bit of a snapshot in terms of our social media muscle. So I can tell you that our social media team, so there's 3 examples here. One is promoting Crab Mountains, their fall festival of colors. We received almost 500,000 views to be able to promote that and drive that traffic through and visibility for to be able to go and visit. So then we were in touch with the owners of Minto Mountain Bike. They told us that they had an influencer coming in. So of how could we work with that influencer and be able to profile the mountain bike trails? So 164,000 views on that. And then as well, this is an influencer, Alex, who lives in St. John, focusing around Fredericton and the Capital Region, that's just under 2.2 million views. So those are just some of the examples. We'll go to the next slide, please. we'll focus on, this is an influencer, Julia, we brought in as part of the New Brunswick tourism campaign. So Julia's primary audience is Ottawa, Ontario, exactly what we wanted to be able to see. We purposely chose her, and she came into Fredericton last year and visited the capital region at the very beginning of July so that she could post her material and then we could promote it. So being very strategic on that, and I can tell you that these influencers test the best versus regular advertising. People want to see that third-party validation. They emanate with her. She has a strong following, and we leverage that any way we can. So we'll go to the next slide. So sport tourism, I just touched on a couple of the different items in terms of sport and the importance of sport tourism, but I really want to get to the next slide, which highlights some of the events for 2025. So 2025, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to highlight a couple of them. In Central York, the Kids Adventure Games at Mactaquac, 2025, their registrations nearly doubled. So the Eastern Canadian Softball, the fields weren't available in Fredericton, so we were able to use Tamath's fields. So for that event and to be able to partner with the community of Nashwauk. Hook and Paddle saw 7 tournaments throughout the region, really fantastic showing. And then the Early Bird Ringette tournament on the very bottom, that was record-breaking 94 teams, and it grew to such a point where we were then able to stretch that into the Fredericton Capital Region. So we worked with the fine folks at Oromocto at the Kings Arrow Arena, and then that filled the days in Oromocto too. So there's lots of different ways that we will continue to work with sport around the region. And in fact, our team is meeting with your team on Thursday for Oromocto. So that's just, I wanted to touch on a couple of those examples. So we'll go to the next slide. Whew. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, I told Dave he's got to be real quick. So Dave's up.
Yeah, so looking ahead, I think we presented to the Infrastructure Committee about our paddling trails project. We've been working on it for a couple of years. We're ready to launch in the middle of June. You'll all get invitations to that launch on Friday, June 12th. We did a little teaser, a little preview for a group of committed paddlers at the Paddling Film Festival. Recently, I had 150 keen local and regional paddlers, and it was very, very well received. So in June, we'll be launching a website, launching a brand, launching a marketing campaign to encourage recreational paddlers from, we're going to focus on the Maritimes and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia to start with, to encourage them to come to our region to paddle. We think we have some of the best paddling in the world. We've been working with James. James is coming up a little bit later, James Donald behind me, and he's done his Blue Trails development work for you, and that really points the way ahead where we can expand and grow. We have a number of areas that we don't have launch sites to connect parts of rivers. So we have whole sections of rivers that are world-class paddling rivers for recreational paddlers that are really inaccessible. They remain inaccessible for people that don't know how to access those areas from official authorized launch sites that can be stamped by a municipality as accessible for paddlers. So very excited about that. The final thing I'll say is that I met with our consultant that's developing our sign plan for the Trails project, and that's almost complete. And John and I will be having a conversation about how we can fund all of you to hopefully participate in getting that signage plan at your authorized launch sites in your community. So I think that's the next step, is to do that branding. Each sign will have the branding for the Trails Paddling Trails project, but also your individual communities. So we'll be coming forward with that soon.
Next slide, please. So in closing, looking ahead, so this is a new year, so we will be working on the visitor guide. So Rose will be working with operators throughout the region to be able to, as well as yourselves, to be able to see what the lists are and everything for your pages for the visitor guide this year. We talked already in terms of that importance of the awareness and the planning for a marketing campaign, as well as intercept. Once they're in the province, once they're in the Maritimes, how do we capture them? We'll continue to invest in new video and photography throughout the region. It was the last piece I wanted to talk about, which was the destination development around existing events and clusters. So we've talked about a lot of these, and in fact, we've hit the ground running already with in the community of Grand Lake with the first New Brunswick Ice Fishing Open, which saw I'm going to say the numbers and then you'll let me know if I'm wrong, 143 anglers. Half of them were from outside the Fredericton Capital Region. 25 of them were from outside of New Brunswick. But what I want to do too is, and this is something as we get ready for this launch, is we're talking to our tourism industry. How are we feeling about this year? Well, I'm not gonna lie, there is some uncertainty. Like there are some big macro items that are leaving us, gas prices. What will that do for tourism? So what we are doing as Fredericton Capital Region Tourism and our team is we're ensuring that we are in the best position possible as we enter into this year and working with our industry and working to build these products. So we'd be remiss not to mention that there are certain variables at play that we just don't know. It changes day by day. But it's also important for you to know that we are thinking about that, and that is something that we are planning for, and like I said, to put us in the best position possible. We will talk about that more on May 7th during our annual tourism launch. We will reach out to make sure that anybody who would like to attend can come. It's Thursday, May 7th for that morning again at the Delta. But thank you very much for your time. I don't think I went over, but I'm probably really close. And that's the last slide. So I have a thank you slide in the end, Kelly. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any questions around the table? Anyone have any questions? Yes, Don.
What are impressions?
Impressions? That's how many times it gets in front of someone's eyes. So it could be a billboard, it could be an ad that pops up as so each one of them is an impression. Yeah. And the studies are too, the more impressions you get, the more you start thinking about it subliminally without us, yeah. Yes.
Okay, thank you. In our area, we're quite concerned with the fact that local events don't seem to be marketed at all. And that while the fishing tournament had a nice start with 140 people, we had 300 at a local fishing tournament. And it was not capable of being marketed when we asked for it to be. So that's just one of the concerns that we have in our area, that we have many events that are much larger than these events that seem to be pocketed or capable. So that would be a concern from our area. And the other thing is that I did like your picture that said, welcome to Fredericton or something like that. A beautiful picture of Minto Mountain Bike Trail. So, loved
it. Anything further around the table? Yes.
I know my time's short.
Yes.
I just want to say we have a very good relationship. We're working hard with Dave, Stacy, Rose, and the whole team at tourism. It's a process. It revolves. The number one thing that always strikes me in the stat that I leave people with is that over 550, because that wasn't the case when we were all just individually trying to market our own areas. That's 550 that came together because of the regionalization in the region and doing this together. And look at the benefit it's having. And that benefit parlays into every community. Is it a perfect system? No, nothing's perfect. I wish it were, but it's not. But we are working very hard and it is growing exponentially. The numbers from over 24 to 25 are just staggering in terms of the increase. And we know that they're taking into account the plan about inflation this year, and I think that deserves a lot of credit. We've got a lot of good relationships there, and they're growing all the time. So, thank you.
Thank you. No further comments? So I need a motion to receive the regional strategy.
Move Glenn Faulkner.
Second by,
Dave, Nashville.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Stacy and David. I've just been instructed to say to Ignite and Tourism, you can leave if you like, or you can stay. I highly recommend that you stay for the full duration.
Good night.
Thanks for attending. Okay, we're gonna move now to the committee reports, the audit committee report, Director Maury and McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence, please.
All right. Okay, attendance were at the audit meeting was myself as chair, Judy Wilson-Shea, vice chair, Robert Powell, Dave DePussy, Ben Faulkner, Marty Forsyth, John Smith, CEO, Brent McRae, COO, Mary Lincoln, CFO, Kelly Shaw, secretary, Darren Lawrence, and Ross Craig, auditor. The meeting was called to order by the chair at 12:01 p.m. Darren Lawrence, partner with McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence, reviewed the results of the audit, presented the draft copy financial statement. The audit result is a clean audit opinion again this year and an annual surplus under public sector accounting standard of 1,042,000. And Mr. Lawrence also reviewed their audit findings letter. The auditors did not identify any weakness in our system, any disagreements with management, nor encounter any significant difficulties during the audit process. An in-camera with the auditors was held, which did not include staff. John Smith reviewed the staff report recommending the appointment of auditors for the 26th fiscal year. The vote provided by McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence of 33,900. The committee endorsed this recommendation, and that report will be presented to you as item number 9A later in the meeting. There being no further business, the meeting was adjourned at 12:43 p.m. Okay, this decision is an administrative matter and requires a simple majority to pass. So I move that the board receive the report of the audit committee dated April 7th, 2026.
Seconded, Bob Powell.
Okay, it's been second. Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Move on to number B, to motion to approve the financial statements. And that's when you likely want our guest speakers.
Okay.
Thank you, Dale.
Okay, I move that the board receive the approve and approve the December 31st, 2025 draft financial statements of Capital Region Service Commission.
Second, Glenn Paul.
Okay, any discussion? Would you like to say a few words about the financial statements? So we can. Okay, do you want to present, please?
Thank you, folks. My name is Darren Lawrence. I'm a partner with McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence. I should just go through the financial statements quickly. So I believe you have the financials in front of you. So what I'll do here is I'll take you through the draft financial statements and just from a high level perspective. And if you have any questions, feel free to stop me as we go. And I can hopefully be able to answer the questions as we go. If we go to the contents page, these financial statements consist of our independent auditor's report, statement of financial position, statement of operations and accumulated surplus, statement of changes in net financial debt, statement of cash flows, the notes to the financial statements, schedule of tangible capital assets, schedule of reconciliation of annual surplus, schedule of segment disclosures, schedule of statement of reserves, schedule of operating budget to TSA budget, and a schedule of revenue and expenditures. Now, you will notice that the statements are in draft and they will remain in draft until they get approved. Once they are approved, we will remove our draft watermark and sign the financial statements. Go to the next page. Pages 1 and 2, it's our draft independent auditors report. It is a clean audit opinion this year. There was nothing that came to our attention that would cause us to qualify our audit opinion. In the second paragraph, it says these financials present fairly in all material respects. The financial position of the commission as at December 31st, 2025, and the results of operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with public sector accounting standards. I won't take you through the rest of the wording, but these are in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. Same wording as the prior year. So we'll skip a few pages here. Let's go on to page 4, which is the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So for the year ending December 31st, 2025, for revenue, and sale of services, 7.7 million. Member charges, 7.7 million. Other revenue, 2 million. Government transfers, 4,071,000. Interest, 264,000. Net realized return on investment, 96,000. For total revenue of 22,083,000, up from 20,800,000 the prior year. For expenditures, you had administration, 10.5 million. Fiscal services, 255,000. Governance, 106,000. Planning and building inspection services, 1.5 million. Solid waste services, 9.1 million. For total expenditures of 21.56 million, up from 19.1 million the prior year. So that left you with an annual surplus before unrealized gains on investments of 522,000. Unrealized gain on investments for the year of 520,000, resulting in an annual surplus for the year of 1,042,000. You started off with an accumulated surplus at the beginning of the year of 22.7 million. You end up with an accumulated surplus at the end of the year of 23.7 million. Let's go back one page to page 3. So at December 31st, on your statement of financial position, for financial assets, you had cash and cash equivalents, 9.5 million. Receivables, 1.4 million. Interest receivable, 11,000. Investments, 7,026,000, for total financial assets of 18,032,000. For liabilities, you had payables and accruals of 1.7 million, deferred revenue 580,000, funds held in trust 123,000, retiring allowance 721,000, long-term debt 3.7 million. Asset retirement obligations, 8 million. Net financial assets of 3,072,000. For non-financial assets, you had tangible capital assets of 20.4 million and prepaid expenses 288,000, leaving you with an accumulated surplus at the end of the year of 23.76 million. Okay. So your balance, your statement of financial position is improved somewhat over the previous year. Let's go on to page 5. This is your statement of changes in net financial debt. So you started off with the annual surplus of 1,042,000. Then you have an acquisition of tangible capital assets, write down of tangible capital assets, and amortization of tangible capital assets, a change in prepaids, resulting in an increase in net financial assets of 2.1 million, leaving you with net financial assets at the end of the year of 3,072,000. Okay. We go to the next page, statement of cash flows. For operating activities, you had cash flows provided by operating activities of 3.8 million. For capital activities, you had cash flows used in capital activities of $1 million. Cash flows cash flows used in financing activities of 1.1 million and cash flows used in investing activities of 98,000. So overall, you had a net increase in cash and cash equivalents of 1.5 million during the year, leaving you with cash and cash equivalents of 9.5 million at the end of the year. Okay, we'll go on to the notes to the financial statements. Now, a lot of these notes are similar to the prior year, and I won't take you through in a lot of detail through the notes. They're relatively standard for this type of organization. And we go into more detail in the financials with the audit committee. So I'll just touch on the high level items here today. Note 1 is your nature of operations. Note 2 is your significant accounting policies. Again, very similar wording to prior year. So I'm going to skip a few pages here. Let's go to page 11, note 3, cash and cash equivalents. This is a breakdown of your restricted cash and your unrestricted cash at the end of the year. So total cash and cash equivalents was 9.5 million. At the end of the year, note 4 is a breakdown of your receivables at the end of the year. So total receivables was 1.4 million at the end of the year. Next page 12, note 5. This is a breakdown of your investments. You had cash, equities, and fixed income that you held at the end of the year for a total fair value of 7,026,000. Note 6, breakdown of your asset retirement obligations. Gross undiscounted costs, 60.2 million. Opening balance was 7.7 million. Accretion 337,000. Closing balance December 31st was 8 million, and you have investment set aside of 7 million. Okay. Just skip a few pages here. Let's go to page 17. This is just a schedule of your tangible capital assets that you owned at the end of the year. It's a breakdown of your costs, accumulated amortization, net book value. I won't take you through that in detail. Page 19, it's a schedule of your reconciliation of annual surplus. Again, these are very detailed schedules. If you have any questions on them, you can let me know, but I'm gonna go on to the schedule of revenue and expenditures on page 40. Again, if you have any questions on those previous pages, you can feel free to ask. But you did receive the statements in advance, so I don't want to spend too much time on them. So page 40, schedule 6. This is a detailed schedule of your revenue and expenditures, which is a further breakdown of the revenue and expenditures that we've already went through on your statement of operations. So if we just go through this, and I'll just touch on a few of the higher level, the larger numbers. For revenue, sale of services, tipping fees, 5.2 million. Recycling materials, 740,000. Power generation, 1.2 million in revenue. So total revenue for sale of services was 7.7 million. Member charges, local planning and inspection services fees, 2,087,000. Tipping fees, 3.6 million. So total member charges, 7.7 million. Other revenue, part of it was regional sport, recreation, and culture, 1.5 million, for total other revenue of 2,074,000. Government transfers, tourism promotion, 835,000. Economic development, 1.7 million. Total government transfers, 4,071,000 during the year. Go on to the next page, page 41. This is a breakdown of your expenditures. So you had administration, CEO's office, financial management, other admin expenditures. Then you go down to administration, you had local planning office expenditures, which totaled $697,000. As you can see, many of the expenditures were consistent with the prior year. Solid waste office administration, $626,000. And the total for that solid waste administration was $1.8 million. We go on to the next page, page 42. Administration for tourism promotion, professional services, $1.5 million. Economic development, professional services administration, $2.4 million. Administration for the community development office totaled $486,000. Administration for regional transportation professionals, regional transportation was a total of $122,000. Administration for sport, recreation, and cultural infrastructure professional services, that was $1.5 million. So total expenditures for administration was $10.5 million. Governance totaled $106,000. Go on to the next page, page 43. Planning and building inspection services. Planning, you had planning services, you had personnel of $908,000. Inspection services totaled $520,000. If we go on to solid waste services, some of the larger items were machinery and equipment, $1.1 million. Landfill operations, $3 million. Amortization, $1.6 million. Regeneration facility total of $963,000. So total solid waste services was $9.1 million for the year. So that's it for our presentation of the financial statements. As mentioned in the audit committee report, we presented our audit findings letter during the year. We didn't find any significant matters that we needed to bring to the audit committee's attention. And there's no significant matters that we need to bring to the board's attention. And as we say each year, it's nice to see that all of your financial records were in order. No significant concerns from an audit perspective, which means you've had all the supporting documents, supporting contracts. And we do make adjustments to the financial statements, but they are minimal and as expected. So there was nothing that came to our attention that would cause us to bring that to you guys at this point in time. So on that note, are there any questions on the financial statements or the audit findings?
Yes, Director.
Madam Chair, just so on your first page here where you also identify the risk, blah, blah, blah. And then you went into fraud, blah, 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 3 paragraphs about fraud. And then you just finished telling us that if there was anything, you would have told us anyway. So why do we put this at the first of every audit?
The audit report?
Yeah.
So the audit report, this is a standard audit report. So each firm, when they audit the financial statements, they have to give an opinion. So this is a independent auditor's report. So this talks about our opinion on the financial statements, the basis for the opinion, the responsibilities of management, this auditor's responsibility for the audit, and there's other factors as well. Now this wording, these front 2 pages, this wording is right out of the CPA handbook. Like this is template. There's a few bullet points that we'll add or delete, but it's all right from a template. This is just our audit report. There's nothing in here that we typically change. And if you look at an audit report from another auditor on an entity such as this one, it should be almost identical. So what we do, so this is just the report and the financial statements, but as part of our audit, We have to go in and look at the numbers, we have to look at their invoices, we have to make sure everything is materially correct. And then we also provide an audit findings letter to the audit committee. So that's a detailed items of, we're only required to bring significant matters to the audit committee. So for instance, if we're looking at, you can imagine the hundreds or even thousands of invoices here that get paid. Certainly hundreds of invoices that get paid, for example. Some of them, they're supposed to be all approved and initialed and signed off by those that are approving them. Sometimes there'll be a missing initial or something. I mean, mistakes happen. If we determine those items are not significant, we're not required to bring them to the audit committee. So there was nothing that we found that would require you for us to bring that to your attention. Some of the things we look at, we come up with a detailed audit plan. We ask a lot of questions, and then some of the sections we report to the audit committee is we provide our findings on fraud, whether or not there's significant disclosures in the financial statements, whether or not there's significant estimates, whether or not we've made significant adjustments. We evaluate your internal control policies, whether or not we find a deficiency in your internal control policies, because as you can imagine with a financial audit, one of the most important things is, like, for example, is segregation of duties. So we don't want one person reviewing an invoice that also has the ability to pay that invoice. Because if an invoice comes in, they could put their name, they could pay themselves, they could pay family members. So we make sure you have appropriate controls in place to hopefully catch all those items. And we evaluate your internal controls and then provide a conclusion on that.
Okay.
And the opinion, the audit opinion basically says we found no material items.
Okay, and I don't want this misconstrued that I think there's anything happening. I was just asking the question, okay?
Title.
Just a follow-up to that. What is a forensic audit? Is that more into looking at every invoice versus?
No. A forensic audit would be if there was, for example, suspected fraud. So if a fraud was reported to us as auditors, or we found fraud, or fraud was reported to management or the audit committee or the board, then you would get into a forensic audit. And right there, you're looking at what is going on, like, is there tipping fees that are being stolen? That's a forensic audit. This is a financial statement audit, so our role is to come in and sign off on the expenses that were incurred and the revenues. So for instance, if we're reporting that you have an office expense, we're reporting that you did in fact spend that amount of money for that item.
Okay.
We report on, you did receive this amount of tipping fees and we've audited it, we confirmed that's the number. This is a financial audit. What this is, and we're only commenting on the numbers. We are not a performance audit. We do not, this is not us coming in to say, okay, you received $20 million or $10 million in tipping fees. That should be 12 million. You should up your fees, you should lower your fees, you should spend your money this way or that way. That's not what that is. We are strictly reporting on the money that's spent. And for us to remain independent, we can't tell you how to spend your money. So we are independent auditors. If you wanted to do a financial performance audit, that's someone else. And we couldn't do that because if you think about it, if we suggested for you how to run your business, and then we go in and audit that, we would be biased. We might be biased to say, we could tell you should do this, and if you lose a bunch of money, we might say no.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? No further questions? Okay, Director Mallory, you put the motion on the floor and to approve the financial statements. I'd like to have a seconder. Any discussion? I think under discussion, we owe the credit to our staff member, Mary Kay, who does an outstanding job every year for us. She really does. Thank you for that, and the team that works with you. And thank you, Darren, for coming in and doing the presentation tonight. No further discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Director Dowry. The Governance Committee report,
Folks.
Director Sweeney, please.
I'll just briefly go over my report here. The governance committee met to review the attached draft proposal for bylaw P12 and considered related governance housekeeping items. Included potential updates to the code of conduct, member training and onboarding. Staff report, no significant changes this year. The draft memo modernizes wording. An outdated reporting requirement under the Infrastructure Committee annual report to the minister has been removed to align with current legislation. There are no proposed changes to the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee bylaw, PRAC 8. Under the Code of Conduct, modest hospitality. Staff will research thresholds to best practices across jurisdictions, public sector and private sector, and return with options to update the bylaw at a later date. So under the motions, I move that the board receive the report of the Governance Committee dated April 7th, 2026.
Second by,
Dale.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Your next motion, please.
I move that the board repeal bylaw P11 and adopt bylaw P12.
Second by,
Seconded, David.
any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Director Sweeney. Move on now to the Regional Infrastructure Committee report. Director David DeQuissy, please.
As of chair of the Infrastructure Committee, we had a meeting March 27th, 2026. The subject is Capital Region Trails Connectivity Fund. This page is in front of you, so I'll just hit the highlights of this. The issue, the Capital Region Service Commission Infrastructure Committee and Economic Expansion Committee have identified waterway and trail connectivity between communities as a matter of regional interest. A funding opportunity has been presented to allow communities to access funding for projects that contribute to regional trail connectivity. On the background, the Regional Service Support Fund, RSSF, supports the implementation of regional strategies by providing targeted financial assistance to regional service commissions across the province. The regional service commissions must match 50% of their overall RSSF allocation to assess the fund. If an RSC does not utilize the full RSSF allocation for a given year, the unused amount at year end will remain allocated to the RSC and may be carried forward for up to 3 years. The Infrastructure Committee and Economic Expansion Committees have been advancing options for enhancing Blue Trail and Green Trail connectivity in the region. This has been done through agreements with Explore Everywhere Media, Ignite, Planet Hatch, and Gemtech. And I'll now call on Chad Elzheimer if he will do his presentation.
Thank you, Director. Just get things going here. Sorry, just a sec. So tonight I'm gonna present a summary of the report. It's a very detailed report on green trails and blue trails. We're gonna be here all night if we're gonna go through it in fine details. So
I have the
I'll
gavel.
summarize and I'll summarize and hit the high level. The assignment, like was mentioned, to gauge the Capital Region Service Commission members and trails connectivity, identify opportunities for regional connections, and develop a funding framework to move this agenda forward. The methodology, we established a communication protocol with the Capital Region Service Commission. We developed a survey, we sent it out to the member communities, and then we met with the communities as well. We met with the key stakeholders, Snowmobile MB and the Quad MB, and the results and the outcomes of those meetings and surveys are appended in the report. Key observations. There's a regional interest and excitement around trail connectivity is what we found out. And that's trails, every community has a piece of trail and it's well utilized. There's varying levels of readiness. Some communities have plans, some don't have plans for trails. Some have funding and human resources to look after the trails, some don't. So there seems to be a gap in terms of a regional master plan, if you wish, or a coordinated effort for trail implementation and management. When it comes to the outcome of the meetings with the key stakeholders, there wasn't any major expansion projects within the capital region. However, they were interested in expanding to what they call destination locations. So if you go to a golf course, for example, or a restaurant or a big park or a natural destination, they would be interested in expanding from the trail to that destination. What they're also interested in is on the programming side and getting the word out, what's happening in the community and what they are doing as well in terms of their clubs. So sharing the good news and promoting the events both for the community and for their own groups. And this is doesn't have to be a costly thing to do. So they're interested in general in collaborating with municipalities. So what we did after that is we built an interactive map that has all types of various trails within the capital region, snowmobile, quad, ATV trails, and active trails, active transportation trails. And we also created a schematic diagram easy to kind of have a visual to see who's connected to who via what type of trail. And hence it made it easy to identify opportunities and gaps. And then we developed a funding framework that would help disperse or fund the initiatives and the opportunities identified using the Regional Service Support Fund. When it comes to priority connectivity examples, and this came out from the surveys we had with all the communities, you notice that the city of Fredericton seems to be the common denominator here. There talks about connections with Oromocto, Nashwaak, Fredericton, Hanwell, Central York on the recreation tourism side. When it comes to active transportation, there are also talks with neighboring communities, or at least these trail connectivities are mentioned in plans that the communities are developing. Example, Fredericton to New Maryland and Fredericton to Hanwell. And like I mentioned in my previous slide, when it comes to motorized connections, nothing major for the region. When talking to the communities, it was also identified, like I mentioned earlier, there's a gap in a regional approach or regional file holder when it comes to trail connectivity. So there could be an opportunity for the capital region to have a leadership role in that sense and coordinate inter-community planning, standardize levels of service, example, surface of the trails, signage, which I know that's in the works already. Safety aspects, the users, when and how. There's also an opportunity to align with provincial trail organizations and supporting access to the funding, which we're gonna dive into here in this presentation at a later point. So the funding program, the main objective is basically utilize the regional support services support fund to enable trail-related work. The objective is a structural and transparent process, and the goals are to support coordinated regional planning, improve existing trail connections, encourage development of new trail layers, and have fair and transparent distribution of funding. And when I say the word trails, it would mean both green trails and blue trails. So it's interchangeable in that sense. Who's eligible? Mainly only the Capital Region Service Commission members. However, if you don't have a project directly yourself, you can partner up with a local organization. Example, Quad and B club in your community, if you wish. And the project must be within the capital region boundaries, and you need to be able to have 1-for-1 capital contribution as a requirement of the regional services support fund. When it comes to administration, obviously there will be a funding application, nothing too complicated. We have developed one, and it's appended in the report as well. It gets reviewed by staff, and we're guessing they're gonna have some judgment for what's considered a good project and what's eligible and what's not eligible. Some discretion there. And then after that, the projects that get approved will turn into a funding agreement of some sort with the Capital Region Service Commission. So the program itself, we established 2 streams. Stream number 1 is for high-level planning, meaning conceptualizing the trail connectivities or the route development, and engage with stakeholders and so on and so forth. In the next slide, I'll provide some examples. And stream number 2 is for the actual work. And when we say actual work, is either enhancing existing trails or developing new connections, or a detailed engineering design for a new construction. So that all would go under stream 2. More details about stream 1. We're suggesting $5,000 for each community. When matched, it becomes $10,000 basically. And that's to get things going. I'd have a gap analysis, engage stakeholders, conceptual design and route planning, and then conduct a feasibility study. So these are examples of activities under this stream. Now, if communities already have plans and they don't need money under this stream, they could move this $5,000 under their umbrella to a project they have. So that's almost a guaranteed $5,000 if they have a project, as long as they're able to match it. Stream number 2 is, like I mentioned, for actual construction, which activities include, but not limited to, surface upgrades, safety improvements and signage, crossing improvements, wayfinding, accessibility upgrades, and amenities. Long list could be there, like boat launch, parking, picnic areas, etc. And obviously the construction of brand new connections that do not exist and the design of such connections. There's a caveat here, projects must be completed by end of March 2028, and that's again stipulated by the Regional Service Support Fund. Like we mentioned earlier, the members wanted a fair and accountable framework, so we figured this framework would meet this criteria because it's has a predefined allocation formula, standardized scoring data criteria, transparent circulation of funding, transparent calculation of funding shares, public documentation of results, and requirements for reporting at the end of the project to the Capital Region Service Commission. Now I'm gonna recap the eligibility for the program. Basically, you have to be a member, and if you don't have a project, you can team up with another organization. The project has to be within the capital region. The application must be matched, and applications are due October 15 of this year. The project would have to be completed by March of 2028. Had some, now I'll go to the framework itself. In developing the framework, we looked at two criteria: population served and the cost of the project. So each and every project is scored on 100 points, 50 points on the cost of the project and 50 points on the population served by connecting the two communities. So if it's Fredericton or Oromocto, the population would be the sum of the population of Fredericton and Oromocto. And then the overall score of all projects is determined, and each project would get their share of the allotted funds as a proportion. So if a project scored 80 points and all the projects scored 190, the percentage of that project would be 80 divided by 190 multiplied by the allotted funds, which, let's say, 500,000. And that's how each project gets funded. The funding contribution cannot exceed 50% of the project cost. So these are arbitrary examples here just to show you how the framework would work. But as applications come in, it's so easy to populate new connections. All we have to do is determine who's connected to, I think I have that example, but anyway. Say New Maryland and Hanwell are connecting, and there's a $750,000 connection, and they're contributing 50-50. This is how much the communities will be getting. Each one will get 38,209. That's only determined after all the projects make it to the hopper. Okay, this is just an example here, but after the applications are all received in October 15, they get in the framework, and then the capital region is able to determine how much money each project would get. This is it in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Yes, Director Nicklin?
What was the determination of not putting motorized boats on your trail system? So for example, I only connect to Arcadia, and other than that, I connect to rural district, but I don't see rural district on your amount. So
it is.
So when I look at it, like, to me, promoting boating, whether it be paddling, when you're paddling, you're promoting the guy that drags his lunch out and paddles down the river and has his lunch on the side of the river. Promoting boating, they fill up in my gas station in Chittenden for $500-600, and they boat over to the Arcadia launch and fill up for $500 or $600. Then they gotta come back home for $500 or $600. To me, the benefit is much larger to our tourism in our area than some of these projects. Like, I don't understand how, he's got wharfs he needs repaired on the lake and things like that. But this doesn't seem to address any of that.
Madam Chair.
Maybe it does, I don't know.
Yeah, just to clarify, through you, Madam Chair, this is for both green and blue trails, connections and projects, both. So if you have improvements to your marina as a project, that is eligible.
And I apologize, I missed the survey that you sent out, so I didn't get it back to you, I apologize.
Oh, we received it from staff, from your staff, so.
It'd be interesting to, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
So, if I could just follow up
Sure.
here. So, for example, if I understand the funding correctly, if Grand Lake that doesn't have just a little piece of that, if Arcadia is trying to fix their wharves, and we team up with Grand Lake, right? Or maybe the rural district, well, theoretically, we're teaming up with Fredericton also, because the boaters also come out of Fredericton into Grand Lake. So theoretically, it would be 100%, other than, sorry. Well, no, I was coming down river.
You bet.
Coming down river, right?
Big wharf and gas and up there, probably bigger than yours.
That's because we don't have any money. That's my point. Anyway, I'm just trying to say, like, theoretically, it's 100% regional, other than, anyway, a little further upriver above the dam, right? But, so how do you get that built into putting an application?
Yeah, so you factor in, are you done, sir?
Yes.
So through you, Madam Chair, again, you put the population served in the population blocks and the cost of the project, and it automatically generates the share of that project as percentage of the total funding relative to all other projects as well. It is an eligible project, and if it's serving more than one community, you can either identify it several times. So you break it down basically, if it's 500,000, but Oromocto to Arcadia is 100,000, so you put that piece as 100,000.
Okay.
Any further questions? Yes.
I'm not sure who the question's for. I'm looking for the final number here, the 500,000 unspent. Are we suggesting that this project will deplete that?
Would you like to answer that?
So through you, Madam Chair, to Director Corey, yes, the idea would be that this is an opportunity to draw down on that funding to create regional connectivity related to regional interest in trail connectivity, whether that be blue or green trail.
For the total 500,000.
Yes.
So there would not be any room between now and 2028 for any new projects that would come forward under that funding.
So under that funding, you could propose, I think we were looking at Jihad in October in order to get into the fall, into the next year build season in 2027. That was identified primarily through the CAO collaboration that we had on that. And so they were saying that they have to be able to know that it's their planet and be able to start that construction or to utilize that funding in 27 and definitely by the end of March of 28. And so I guess technically, yes, there could be new projects. They would all be new for what we're doing. If you have existing projects that need a hand that can enhance connectivity, those can also be brought forward that are existing. There's opportunities under this for the planning, the development of it, and the implementation. But utilization of the funding, yes.
So I'm not just referring to this project for the funding. I'm saying if a new board in July has something new that they want to pursue under that funding that's not related to trails or anything else, there would not be any funding left in that.
So through you, Madam Chair, to Director Corey, I guess, Director Corey, any new board would have the opportunity to come back and review a decision of the previous board hopefully they wouldn't, they would respect the fact that this was a decision that was made that could undertake to utilize that funding.
Any further questions? Yes.
I could be wrong here, but being chair of the infrastructure committee, this is funding that we have not been able to utilize in the past. Moving ahead, the RSSF will be replenished in years to come, which some of this could be directed still to the infrastructure or some other project. Is that correct?
Yes.
That might clear a little bit up for you.
Just saying that pot's empty when we approve this.
Well, hopefully the government's gonna keep replenishing it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Madam Chair, if I may address the conversation. So the RSSF funding has been stabilized. It's been put in legislation, and we saw it in the budget this year, again for next year. Within this, we do know that it's still a 50-50 cost share to implement the new mandated services. We do know that as of a memo in July of last year that was shared with the board, that up to 25% of an RSC's allocation may be used to offset regional infrastructure cost sharing, provided the RSC can demonstrate that doing so will not hinder the implementation of its regional strategy. And we're clear on that. And doing so, this change provides greater flexibility to address infrastructure needs in a way that supports regional coordination and promotes sustainable growth. So it's an opportunity. This is also, and I'll ask Mary Kay to correct me if I'm wrong, this is also 2024 funding that's been carried over, and we either utilize it in 2027 or we don't. And this was identified as probably the one of the most advantageous opportunities for all communities to participate. If not, trust me, I'll have a plan B. But in terms of that, but we have to use that funding in 2028 or 2027, sorry. It's only RSSF funding that has not been utilized in the year in which it was intended for is only able to be carried forward for up to 3 years. Mary Kay, did I say anything wrong? Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? So thank you for the presentation, and I'll ask Director Duplessis to put a motion to receive the report, please.
I so move that we receive this staff report as presented today to the board.
I'll second it, Marty Forsyth.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. And your next motion, please.
I move that the Capital Region Service Commission Board direct staff to proceed with the Capital Region Trails Connectivity Fund proposal as described in the staff report.
Second, Marty Forsyth.
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Director Duplessis. We'll move on. Yes, I did.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, I thanked him before I moved on. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to 9, staff reports, A, auditor appointment. And Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you to the members of the board. Our procedural bylaw states that at section 511, the board shall appoint a financial auditor of the commission annually at the annual general meeting. We saw tonight the results of our audit, and we've been very pleased in working with McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence over the past couple of years. And so we'd asked them to provide us a quote based on their next year and an estimated quote for next year. And this was quoted at $33,900 plus HST for the 2026 audit. And this compares to their quote for 2025 of $32,000 plus HST. There are two options available to the here today in terms of that, but the recommendation in terms of looking at the report, in case of, so we have two options. recommend to the board that it appoint our existing auditors, McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence, for the fiscal year 2026, or recommend to the board their staff be directed to prepare and issue a request for proposal for the provision of auditing services for the fiscal year 2026 and return to the committee with a recommendation. And this was all in the discussion of the committee at the time. The recommendation in the case of option one, the committee and the board can take comfort in the fact that staff have consistently heard from officials inside the financial group at Environment and Local Government that our annual statements are well prepared. In addition, comfort can be taken that the CRSC is getting good value for this service when contrasted to comparable service commissions. In the case of option two, there would be considerable extra staff effort and an uncertain response rate from industry. Also, given the current pricing we enjoy, it is unlikely to obtain a significantly different financial benefit. Administrative burden in preparing and responding to and evaluating such calls, as well as bringing a new auditor up to speed on our business, is not insignificant. Option one is recommended and can be accomplished by passing the following motion. That be it resolved that the board appoint the firm of McMillan, Lawrence and Lawrence as auditors for the Capital Region Service Commission for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2026. This is an administrative decision matter that requires a simple majority.
I'll move Len Faulkner.
Okay. So any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Move on to the CEO report, a verbal report. Mr. Smith, please.
This will be about a 10-second report, Madam Chair. Get ready because this will be the shortest one I've given in the last 3 years. Tomorrow morning, there is a candidate breakfast and information session being hosted by Ignite in the region, and it's at the Delta Hotel in Fredericton. And we encourage you and all of your colleagues to come out. Anyone that's reoffering, anyone that would like to learn about the Economic Development Services, the Regional Service Commission, and other opportunities that are being hosted in the region. So feel free to spread the word on that. Secondly, a board breakfast to recognize those that are going to be moving on after the May election. We will be having that breakfast on May 14th. In the morning, and we will have further details in very short order out to the board. We'd like to have those that are leaving, some have decided to resign, step back, take other opportunities, and who knows what surprises the election may bring. But we'd like to invite all of this board out, all the members out to participate and receive a little token of our appreciation on behalf of the Service Commission. Thank you, Madam Chair. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions? No, we'll move on to number C, the annual report. Brett McCray, would you like to give the place,
I
please?
would love. Again, this will be quick, not as quick as John's, but as fast as possible. We're required in the legislation to produce an annual report each year. The legislation, the Regional Service Delivery Act regulations also specify what gets included in that report. So it's fairly boilerplate, same format, same scope as what you would have seen in previous years, updated with the latest year's information and data. The report, the draft report, has been included in your voluminous board package. We apologize in the version that we distributed earlier. There was a wrinkle, it was not included. And so staff recognizes that you had a limited amount of time to review it. As a result of that, I would like to recommend a small change to the recommended motion that was included in your package. And the way I would suggest addressing it would be that we modify it to read, I move that the board adopt in principle the attached draft annual report as the Capital Region Service Commission's 2025 annual report, and that pending a 1-week feedback period, it be distributed as described in section 33 of the Regional Service Delivery Act. That'll allow us to get it finalized, give the board an opportunity to review and provide any feedback, and still meet our timeline and not require an additional meeting to discuss further.
Is everybody in agreement with that? I agree that we have to call a special meeting. Take a week and read it over, and if you have any errors or anything you'd like to bring to their attention, please do so. And when's the cutoff date? Anyone suggest?
I would suggest 1 week.
1 week.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's approximately 35 pages, so
Yeah,
that's reasonable.
so you have responsibility if you see any errors or anything you'd like to discuss, it's your responsibility to send it in. Okay, so would someone like to do the motion the way that Brett had read it? Word for word?
Word for word.
Okay, and who would like to second it?
I will. David?
Any discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Now we are going to move into closed session, so I have to ask,
Can I ask before we do that, one question?
yes?
We haven't heard from that gentleman, the blue sky thing. I sat through his presentation. He had nothing to do with the blue trail. I thought he was coming to talk about that.
He was here and to, if anyone had any questions for him.
Okay, I thought he was gonna
Yeah, it was
talk.
wrapped up in the funding part of it.
I just,
I can,
you sat there the whole time, and listened to all this. I thought I was gonna hear you speak. That's all. That's all. I brought it up, so it was me.
I did talk to him before the meeting and, yeah, no, everything's good.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
if you do have any
Thank you.
questions, let me know.
Trust me, I know I'll get a hold of you.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks, James.
Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session.
Motion to close session, Dave Morrison, Himmel.
Seconded, Bob Powell.
We're now into closed session.